Welcome. My name is Sasha Moore, and I'm delighted to be moderating today's Legal Update, an initiative from UniSearch, Australia's leading and most established provider of expert opinion services. This program has been created to provide bite-sized updates on various matter areas to help the profession stay informed about topical developments, legislative updates, and changes in the respective field. Welcome, and thank you for joining today's session. So today we're going to delve into prison culture and behaviour. Why does this matter? Because criminal matters involving prison violence, gang affiliations, or inmate behaviour, courts often rely on assumptions drawn by mainstream social norms. And this can lead to misinterpretations of actions, symbols, or communication within prison culture. We're going to draw upon the highly specialised insights from one of UniSearch's esteemed industry experts, Sarah Tucker, who will give some unique perspectives into how prison culture operates, why behaviour inside prisons do not correlate and cannot be assessed by everyday standards. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation, which is going to look at decoding prison behaviour in context, advising on gang affiliation and symbolism, behaviours or signals that may precede violent incidents, when correctional decisions such as housing or staff assignments may increase the risk of conflict, and some of the correctional system challenges. So welcome, Sarah. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Sasha.
I'm really looking forward to your insights on such an interesting topic. We also have today with us UniSearch's Business Development Manager, Christopher Aaron-Yong. Christopher will provide some additional context, including some commentary on the evolution of criminal litigation and the increase in shadow experts in such complex matters. Welcome, Christopher.
Thanks for having me, Sasha.
So let's jump into it. Sarah, I'd like to start with you. So let's start with decoding behaviour in prison contexts. What are some of the factors that are at play?
Well, because prisons are designed specifically to restrict freedom, the environments are confining and controlling, so humans naturally adapt to their surroundings. But when they're exposed, and especially over a long-term sentence, the adaptations can permanently alter their behaviour even on the outside after release, and their perceptions. So that even actions that seem subtle in the outside world can have deeper context and meanings. And within the prison context, the unique and social dynamic and environment can exacerbate such behaviours.
So I find it so grossly interesting that there is such a defined prison culture versus what we would perceive as a standard behaviour. So can we maybe just delve into that a little bit? So if we look at prison behaviour versus social, let's call it everyday, just for the point of the discussion. So if we look at the distinguishing factors between them, can you give some more clarity of what that looks like?
Well, especially in today's society with increasing technologies, in the outside world, social media creates an identity for people and social positioning. But within the prisons where there is no such platforms, people have to create larger than life ideas, identities in order to survive. Tattoos are also a part of that, and they remain one of the few enduring markers of identity and affiliation beyond the institution. So ever since the time of even the law and restriction, tattoos have been used to mark to mark the marginalized, and therefore criminals take that onto in a different context in prison without the technology to create identities or even material items such as clothing, etc. So because of the restriction in identity through uniforms, prison uniforms, simple gestures can make the difference between a man and a mouse within such an environment or a unit, especially in maximum security prisons.
So in terms of then that social behaviour, from a legal perspective, what are you finding from an expert witness lens? So what are some of the matters that you would say become involved in, and what would you analyse?
Due to the increasing climate of prisons and increasing populations, and especially with the transnational globe, the prisons are taking on different conflicting cultures. So the violence can extend onto the outside or even from the outside into the prison walls. So previously, where things seemed contained within prison culture, now they're spilling onto the streets with technology and social media. So the understanding, the ripple effect can be larger than previously nuanced or understood. So these things can become a catalyst in the outside world and even into other crimes.
Okay, so if we just delve into that, let's call it the prison language. So tattoos are obviously one element that helps to shape that language. And would I be correct to say the social structure?
Yes, and also the interesting thing is that Australia has such a Creole society and a mixture that some of the other gang affiliations from transnational cultures that are moving into the prisons are now becoming an influence. So understanding even the implications of, say, Russian mafia tattoos, or even into Hong Kong Thai Yakuza tattoos, the influence of them and the symbolism is starting to move into the prisons into a larger context, and understanding what those tattoos mean and the position of a person within their hierarchy is essential to understanding the nuances of the social behavior, especially within litigation.
Okay, and so if we just explore that a little further, um, does each gang have their own hierarchy or their own behaviors, or are there more common expectations that gangs would demonstrate?
I think in Australian culture, with the history that we have, they're still very similar, but they take on different names or roles or positions just in slightly nuanced ways. And even women are becoming more prevalent in gang positions now and movements, which can move between different prisons, between women's prisons and to men's prisons in that context as well.
That's really interesting. So we've got obviously the tattoos and the symbolism and the sort of the silent language that communicates. But then we've got the national gangs, the international influence, and particularly I'm interested in that gender dynamic as well, because I would expect that that's now also with the shift of more females being involved, that would also change the dynamic there.
Yeah, so previously, female prisoners and the ex-incarcerated took on a very specific, more neutral role within the gang uh, business model, for instance. But then when the men are all locked up in the prison, the women have begun to take on some of those business motions themselves. So their roles are changing now into a dual model of business management for criminal entities. So their positions have moved as well through the hierarchies, and the respect has changed and altered somewhat from a more patriarchal criminological framework.
Interesting. So again, I guess from a legal perspective, it would really be prudent to understand that when assessing or when coming across any criminal litigation, that there is this additional layer that sits underneath, which forms a very core part of assessing a matter.
Um, yeah, I think especially at the moment with such an increasing rate of prisoners, and the return to prison rate went up 2% in the last year to 43%. So that means 43% of every person that is locked up will return to prison. So I think today with court matters, and if there's anyone that has a record, nothing can just be overlooked anymore. Everything needs to be reconsidered and looked at in a different face of the inside and the outside world for the criminal.
Okay, thank you. So moving to violence and incident risk, what are some of the indicators or preventative actions that can be put into place with this understanding?
Well, that's also a part of external factors can also leak into the inside. So being aware of perhaps an incident on the outside before moving a bunch of prisoners from one culture to another within units can shift the entire makeup of that and the dynamic of the one unit or even cell blocks. So that could potentially understanding different cultural shifts and society and how that flows through the inside can often save prison managers a whole lot of violent and incidents, and even potentially against a targeted officer.
Okay, and I know that we were also sort of talking offline about sort of behaviours or signals that might, if you're aware of them, might precede violent incidents. Can you give some examples of those?
Especially with media. So there is often media photographs, etc., that may come out, but some of the people, even though they're de-identified, their hand signals could actually be creating a gesture that could actually signal something on the outside world. So I have seen photographs that newspapers have printed that have gang insignia in them, and obviously management didn't catch that quick enough. So that can actually also leak. So smaller symbols, very low key, even down to just a finger twitch in a hand movement in a lineup, can actually signal something to someone else, even in the prison chapel, for instance.
Fascinating. So in terms of then some of the correctional system challenges, could you just provide a brief overview of sort of what some of the top level challenges are that you're observing?
Well, especially is a shortage of staff and qualified staff and staff training. And as things are changing so quickly and rapidly, the staff are beginning to be younger and less experienced, and they don't have that street knowledge of such things as specific signs, symbols that have been throughout a thread within the criminal network for a long time. Those things are really important for corrections to be able to stay ahead of.
Thank you. Chris, moving to you in your role at Unisearch, I understand that you have a bird's eye view of litigious matters and that criminal matters involving inmates are typically highly complex, especially in criminal litigation. This correlates with the rise of shadow experts. So I'd love to get your understanding of, firstly, what a shadow expert is and how industry specialists like Sarah are supporting the court.
Thanks so much, Sasha, and thank you, Sarah. Just to paraphrase Justice Reardon, a shadow expert is a colloquial expression and it's not a pejorative. A shadow expert is often engaged by firms to advocate for a client's interest, be involved in strategic decision-making on how independent experts should be briefed, and they can also generally inform lawyers and counsel on technical matters. Turning then to some of the points that Sarah has touched on today, there are a few different contexts which Unisearch have observed, which Sarah might be able to add the most value to, especially to instructing solicitors or counsel, whether they act on behalf of a plaintiff or a defendant. Now, these three broad areas include, first, understanding, as Sarah touched on today, and decoding the significance of an inmate's tattoos, artwork or cultural symbolism, or even behaviours in a pre-trial context. Now, this could also mean that the lawyers now understand and are able to navigate behaviours of individuals or peoples or groups of peoples. This is particularly important when trial strategy is being formulated. The second is, of course, a preparation of independent expert witness reports in line with the Expert Witness Code of Conduct. Now, this could take the form of contextualizing prison-specific behaviour to assist the courts and tribunals with decision-making and understanding, and to also ensure that there aren't false parallels drawn with what is considered a social norm. And lastly, we find that Sarah might be able to assist with policy development by drawing upon her exploratory empirical studies. Now, this will help empower her to provide expert opinions on correctional system strain, overcrowding and cultural behaviour, which might be considered during sentencing appeals or the broader process. So in summary, Sarah's expertise is sought after and will play a role in helping instructing solicitors, counsel and the judiciary understand and navigate an incredibly complex area, an area of which Unisearch is seeing a sharp rise of criminal matters, such as those involving correctional system, come through our door.
Thank you so much, Chris. And just with my observation, just to give an additional layer of that shadow expert piece, is quite often in these complex litigious matters, multiple experts will have their insights drawn upon and their expertise drawn upon. So in terms of shadowing another expert, Sarah, what are the types of complementary experts that you would typically be working with?
Aside from corrections, but also to help analyze letters that inmates have written, also with artwork that they may have sent out. So within the arts areas, symbolisms, and any perhaps tattoo machine violence, etc.
No, indeed. And would you perhaps work with an expert, like a forensic expert, or any of those sort of very specific types of medical experts who might be analyzing, if there had been an injury or an attack or areas like that?
Yeah, especially with Queensland Health within the prisons, and understanding also possible infections that could be caused from tattoo machines and health, but also because I've got a long experience with psychology and human behaviour in that area, as well as cross-contamination. So Queensland Health psychologists, programs workers, and even the support teams for prisoners.
Thank you so much. So in terms of the key takeaways from today, so many, I'd like to firstly thank you for your tremendous insights, Sarah. We appreciate your specialised interpretation of prison behaviour and culture. The main takeaways of the profession are, firstly and most importantly, to clearly distinguish that everyday standards do not correlate with prison behaviour or prison dynamics. This is incredibly multifaceted, which is why experts like Sarah are involved in pre-matter reviews to ensure that cultural and contextual accurate insights are maintained. Thank you, Chris, as always, for your commentary on the evolution of criminal litigation and the associated roles in experts in supporting the court. And to the profession who's tuned in today, we hope that you found today's session insightful. And if you need to reach out to Unisearch to discuss a matter, you can email Chris at c.yong@unisearch.com.au. Until next time, goodbye. Thank you.